So right now we're going to look at further sustainable practices for farming. And of course, one of these practices is organic farming. And this gives an aspect of organic farming where you use vermicomposting or vermicomposting. Both pronunciations are acceptable. Uh, where you use worms to break down organic matter into a compost. You have used green manures, where you have plants which you then plough into the ground and they will fertilize the soil. You have crop rotation. You have biological management of pests. So biological control is organic. If you use agrochemicals, it's no longer organic. You have animal husbandry. And of course, animals can be integrated into farms. You have biofertilizers, which are fertilizers made from plants and animals. Manures, of course. Well, we're going to look at organic farming as one of the aspects in this presentation, where we have pest control, which can be biological, where you use natural predators to kill off insect pests and so on, and genetic, where you have resistant uh, species towards the crop, and integrated pest management. We'll discuss that. We have organic farming, hydroponics, post-harvest management, and we'll really deal with genetic engineering and plant breeding later on. But notice we've mentioned genetic engineering in a previous class, looking at farming systems. So, what is integrated pest management? And it uses a range of practices using simple common sense approaches that reduce the incidence of pests and disease on a farm. And it involves preventative measures, which are good agricultural practices used before planting, and have management, good agricultural practices used after planting. And each relies on several interventions that ensure healthy plants and improved yields for farmers. And it involves both before planting and after planting practices. And it involves 5 steps. The first one is knowledge, where we know the key pests which are going to affect the crop. We need to know the pest life cycles, the natural enemies of the pest, so we can perhaps introduce those. And you need to know the growing area. So the first step is knowledge, and 2, prevention. We can do prevention by correct site selection and using the correct variety, correct using resistant varieties if possible. Time of planting. Planting in certain times will increase the likelihood of fungal infections and so on. Then we need water and nutrition management, using correct water. I suppose pests can come in the water, for example, and using the correct nutrition for the farm and farm hygiene, and then pest host management. And 3, observation. You need to have crop monitoring to see if the pest is present and so on. Pest prediction models. You can use pheromone traps. Pheromones excite insects sexually. So they'll go looking for a mate and get trapped. You can have yellow sticky traps. You can have intervention. You can have mechanical controls like mesh around the plants. You have biological controls, natural pests. And you can use chemical controls if that's necessary. And then you evaluate how effective the system you're doing is working. We can review monitoring records, talking, listening, and reading and thinking. So you discuss it with us, and they can consult and adapt your model. So the first step is to identify the pest and learn about it. And clearly, correctly identifying your pest is a critical first step. If your mistaken identification can lead to ineffective control tactics that waste time and money and lead to unnecessary risks to the environment or people. And even worse, you could end up wiping out beneficial insects that might control your pest all by itself. So you have to know the pest that's causing the problem, and then choose a strategy. And then it says the pyramid of IPM tactics is a useful guide for choosing an intervention strategy. Um, from four main categories: cultural, that's where the thing is grown and so on; site and plant selection; sanitation and rotation. You've got to know where you're growing the plant. Um, okay, then physical, mechanical. So you can have you prune the plant if it gets disease. You can weed to remove uh, unnecessary plant growth. You can mulch the soil and you set traps and barriers for farming. Then you have biological, uh, yeah, add natural predators to the pest. These can be parasites, so predators. Um, they can be parasites to the pest, even roundworms or nematodes. And then you have chemical. Uh, if possible, you can use things like soaps, oils, and baking soda. You can try to use natural chemicals if possible. And then finally, if all else works, you can use insecticides, fungicides, herbicides, etc. But try to use this as little as possible and cultural as much as possible. So the pyramid shows you the extent to which you should use the different strategies. So cultural methods. One thing, of course, is multiple cropping or mixed cropping. If you grow a variety of crops, the likelihood of a disease spreading is less. So it increases the habitat for pest predators is probably another thing. Limits the number of food plants for specific insect pests. Um, and another cultural method is you discourage the use of monoculture. Then you can have physical mechanical strategies. You can hand picking. If you're sure it's a pest and not a beneficial insect, hand pick as many as you can. And you can drop the insects and egg clusters into a coffee can or quart jar containing some water. So you can hand pick, and then you can set traps that are effective for certain pests. So this one said you're probably familiar with the use of a dish of beer as a trap for slugs. I'm not too sure that many people know that, but it's something you could use. Then yellow plastic dish pans filled with soapy water can attract aphids and get rid of them. Whiteflies and cucumber beetles can be trapped on homemade sticky traps using balls of painted yellow and highly coated with oil or grease. And you can buy sticky traps commercially. So those are, then you have mechanical, and mechanical barriers can exclude some pests, but may not be effective if pest population is too large. Row covers and netting are two common barriers used by vegetable gardeners. Net-covered cages can be placed over young seedlings to prevent insect, bird, and rabbit damage. And home gardeners sometimes have success with homemade barriers, such as collars made of cardboard, tin cans, or aluminium foil. Sticky barriers in the trunk trees or woody shrubs may prevent damage from crawling insects, and some commercial ones are available. And kaolin clay or china clay can be used to form a preventive film on the leaves of fruit to protect plants from a certain type of beetle or tarnished plant bug, leafhopper, mite, thrips, flea beetle, and Japanese beetle damage. Uh, then you can have biological control, where the plant itself is resistant and the agents grow on or in the pest, and the agents compete for food and space. Um, and then you have natural enemies such as parasitoids, which are parasitic on the pest, or predators. And then you can use entomopathogenic nematodes. Nematodes are roundworms, and these can affect the pest as well. Uh, that's kind of a enemy of the pest, but different from a predator. But I suppose it is an example of a parasitoid. Um, some organic and less toxic insecticides can use these first. So you can use pesticidal soaps, certain petroleum oils, and plant-based oils such as neem and microbials. You can have some less toxic insecticides and use these first. Another thing is organic farming, which uses nature as a model. So trying to make our farming as close to nature as possible. It encourages natural predators to manage pests and considers a farm as an integrated entity. Organic farming does not consume or release synthetic pesticides or chemicals. That's one of the important things about organic farming. So farming is organic. You can't use synthetic things at all. And it's based on maintaining a living soil. And it basically feeds the soil. And a healthy soil therefore results in a healthy plant. So it feeds the soil, not the plant. So organic matter is maintained in the soil. So organic farming, the key point is we don't use any man-made uh, entities. So what are the benefits of organic farming? It encourages soil fauna and flora, improving soil formation and structure, and creating more stable systems which have a natural ecosystem more or less. Greatly reduces the risk of groundwater pollution, since organic practice makes natural fertilizers and pesticides, only using the natural fertilizers, we're not using artificial ones, and therefore there's less leaching and runoff. And it encourages biodiversity through preservation of beneficial insects, which will be killed by the synthetic pesticides. And it promotes sustainability through the use of raw materials found inside the farm. And reduces the financial risk by replacing expensive chemical inputs with locally available renewable resources. And there's access to new market opportunities. Quite often there's a market for organic uh, organic produced produce, which is sold at a higher price. And Some people want to buy organic food. So the pros of organic farming is improvement in health levels, avoidance of soil pollution, less groundwater pollution, protection of insects. That's the beneficial insects, of course. It's more sustainable. Organic garbage can be composted and reused. Organic food may taste better, better nutrition values on average, saving money if you grow your own organic plants. There's no use of GMOs, um, better for the climate, better for the health of the farmers because they're not using the agrochemicals. More original form of farming. We're bringing farming back towards how it was earlier on, um, trying to use natural means rather than artificial. Pollination may be easier because you're going to have the insects around. Cons, significant cost at the beginning. It may not be suitable for growing on a large scale. Controlling pests is sometimes more is problematic. Products may be too expensive for poor people because organically produced produce is more expensive. Regulatory standards may be too hard to meet because we can't really get anything that's perfectly organic. High certification costs. Small farmers may go out of business. Organic farming can be time consuming. Organic farming needs plenty of knowledge, unpleasant smells, because organic fertilizers often have unpleasant smells. High variance in yield and quality. So going to be more, greater variation since you're not using GMOs and that kind of thing. After that, we have hydroponics, which is growing crops in a soilless medium. So this, for example, is an example of hydroponics, where these lettuce are grown without soil. Basically, what happens is you have something to hold the lettuce in, or the plant in, and you have a circulation of water, and you have a pump which pumps water around. It goes through some plants, uh, collects as it goes through this growth medium, and drains back into the nutrient which we plant pumped around again. And the advantages of hydroponics, it saves space. Plants grown in soil need to spread their roots in order to find water and all the nutrients they need to survive. This means they must be planted a certain distance apart. In hydroponic systems, roots don't need to spread because water nutrients are delivered right to them. And as a result, hydroponic systems can grow plants in the same amount of space as soil-based systems. Okay, yeah, so in a hydroponic system, you can grow more plants because they don't need as an extensive root system. So it saves space. You can grow more plants in the same area. It's also water conservation. Um, so that field farms account for 8% of the water use in the US. And field farms use a lot of water because much of it is lost. So water evaporates, rolls away, and puddles, making much of it unusable. So there's a lot of waste. So hydroponic systems use about 10 times less water because it's delivered in a controlled way. Plus, some of the systems recirculate water, reducing consumption even more. There's fewer chemicals. So while hydroponic systems don't eradicate pest issues, it does lower the potential of this happening, resulting in less need for pesticides and herbicides. So hydroponic systems are highly controlled, so there's no risk of weeds taking over the garden. In hydroponic systems, there aren't going to be any weeds. and as a result, there's no need for herbicides. Plus, because hydroponic systems are often indoors, plants can't infiltrate them as easily, so pesticides aren't necessary. Um, then also, faster growth. Plants grown in hydroponic systems grow 30% to 50% faster. So crops grown in hydroponic systems, they receive an ideal amount of nutrients, and if grown indoors, have less environmentally induced stress. Also, the roots are exposed to more air, and therefore they can respire faster, and therefore they can take in nutrients more effectively. Um, so it mentions that certain plants, such as lettuce and thirsty fruits like tomatoes, tend to grow faster in hydroponic systems. They can grow tomatoes much faster in a hydroponic system. Then you have nutrient control. Hydroponic systems, plants feed a nutrient solution mixed with water, giving the farmer better control over nutrients so crops soak up. And cultivar grown in soil may need help of fertilizers, but hydroponics, the plants are already receiving all the help they need. They can grow them indoors. Uh, Growing indoors comes with its own benefits, its ability to grow all year round, and the temperature and climate control, so there's fewer pests. Hydroponic systems are usually implemented indoors because of the environmental control it offers. We can control temperature, humidity, and so on. So there's advantages there. Healthier plants. Um, in hydroponic farming, plants grow healthier than in soil. There's no soil-borne diseases, um, and they don't have to spread out their roots. There's higher yields from in smaller spaces. Uh, Additionally, plants are healthier and grow faster, generating more produce faster. So there's no soil erosion because they don't use soil. There's going to be no weeds. Okay, because since there's no soil, weeds can't grow in the area. Disadvantages: if something goes wrong with the water, all the plants are affected. So you might lose your entire crop. So then there is no soil buffer change. And without a buffer, the pH can raise and fall uncontrollably, which might kill the plants. So, so the point is, soils act as a buffer to pH. Um, it says in soil, pH drops in soil, breaking down calcium rock, which brings pH back up. Um, Even things like manures and so on can act as buffers, but you don't have that in hydroponics. Um, then we have post-harvest management, and this includes processes done immediately after harvesting, um, including cooling, cleaning, sorting, and packing. The instant the crop is removed from the ground or separated from its parent plant, it begins to deteriorate. Therefore, post-harvest management are given to increase shelf life or maintain its quality. You probably know quite often if you look at, say, lettuce in a supermarket, it deteriorates fairly quickly. And keeping healthy crops from the farm to the shelf in the supermarket is all part of post-harvest management. So, post-harvest handling is the storage of crop production immediately following harvest, including drying, cleaning, sorting, and packing. So we have pre-harvest losses, which occurs before harvesting begins, with insects, weeds, and pests. Then your harvest losses, beginning and completion of harvesting. Uh, so While you're harvesting the crop, you might get losses. Then you have post-harvest losses, the moment of consumption, including on-the-farm losses. So it's threshing, winnowing, drying, losses along the chain due to transportation, storage and processing. And important in many developing countries are on-farm losses during storage or consumption, or while awaiting selling opportunities or a rise in prices. So there are several different areas where plants may be um, damaged. So the types of post-harvest loss have biological, pest and disease. Sometimes a crop might get a pest or disease on it, which manifests itself after harvesting. You have chemical, visible external contamination with pesticide and chemical products, toxins and unpleasant flavour produced by pathogens. Mechanical, you have injuries, cuts, bruises, grazes, scrapings, shatters during harvesting, etc. Physical, uh, if the crop gets too hot, or cooling, or freezing. For example, bananas which are refrigerated will turn black, for example. Then have physiological, kind of sprouting, senescence, which is old age, caused by transpiration and respiration. And we sometimes treat crops with chemicals, and this really to preserve them and perhaps to give them a nicer colour. It seems that this apple is being injected with both a red dye and a green dye to make the apple more attractive colour. I suppose this is suggesting that might be poisonous. They have poisons which are put onto crops to make them look better. So factors affecting post-harvest loss. Primary causes. Mechanical loss due to fruits is caused by careless handling during harvesting, packaging and transporting. So microbial action. Fruit and vegetables are more prone to microbial spoilage caused by fungi. Then you have environmental factors, temperature, humidity, and so on, also cause of post-harvest loss. Then you have secondary causes, inadequate harvesting, transportation, storage, and marketing facilities. Inadequate storage at the producing or marketing centres, and longer shipment and distribution period also cause losses. Um, so control of post-harvest loss um, in fruit and vegetables can be minimized by proper cultural operations, harvesting, transportation, storage, and pre and post-harvest treatments. You have to harvest them at the correct time and so on. Cultural operations. Interrupted supply of water causes cracking of carrots, radish and tomato, and splitting of outer scales of onion. Sudden heavy irrigation at late maturity results in cracking of watermelons and tomatoes. And heavy application of nitrogenous fertilizers causes faster tissue deterioration in fruit and vegetables, while essential supply of potassic fertilizer improves the keeping of fruit and vegetables. So what fertilizers you use is also important. Then harvesting and field handling. Overmaturity in root crops such as carrot, radish, etc. causes sponginess, and therefore the harvesting should not be delayed. Uh, Almost all crops are badly affected due to delayed harvesting. Harvesting of fruit and vegetables should be done at cooler parts of the day, and products should be shifted to a packaging shade as early as possible. And harvesting of vegetables during or immediately after the rains should not be carried out, as it creates conditions more favourable for multiplication of microorganisms. Um, then you have washing and grading. Um, this is another important aspect. You can read that for yourselves. And then how we're packaging it is also important. Um, Vegetables can be protected from the influence of dry air by packing in various types of plastic film. As you know, for example, certain vegetables will get fairly flaccid if they're kept exposed to the air. So polythene film, paperboard, boxes lined with polythene and other materials can effectively prolong the storage life of fruit and vegetables. There's quite a few. Then you have pre-cooling. Cooling the plant will respire at a lower rate and therefore stay fresher for longer. How we transport it is also important. And then effective marketing so that the produce sells fairly soon after being harvested is important. And how we control the outer atmosphere. Ionizing radiation. You can use gamma rays, for example, on fruit or strawberries, and it kills bacteria. Then, of course, the radiation will pass through the crop, and after that, it's no longer there. So it's not really harmful. So, the advantage of ionizing radiation is it can destroy the pathogenic organisms without raising the temperature. So it extends the life of the organism. It can wax them. The outer surface of fruit and vegetables have a natural waxy layer, which is partially removed during handling. So the practical benefit of wax coating is usually a reduction in evaporation and respiration. So you use it in certain fruit. We can add wax to them. It has been reported that where refrigerated storage facilities are not available, protective skin coating with wax is one of the methods developed for increasing the storage life of fruit and vegetables. And fruit and vegetables far too water emulsified with mustard oil increases the storage life of many fruits and vegetables, like tomato, okra, mangoes, etc. But what we do is we use mustard oil or some natural oil, and therefore it should not be harmful if consumed. And then we have a conclusion there. And when it comes to GMOs, we're going to talk about those in a later class.